All right.
All right.
What?
Have we started?
We have started.
All
Is
right.
that okay with you?
Of course.
Of course.
Welcome to this edition of Sexy Chocolate Men in Cars Drinking Coffee Talking Shit.
I do have some black. Not very much.
Everyone does. Everyone does. You want to start there? You want to start with the racial thing? We can.
We can if you want.
We can nerd out on that.
So, everybody, hi. Welcome to Conservatish episode 72. Motherfucker.
I prefer my term. I prefer my title.
Oh, please.
Oops, my fault. I prefer my title.
What's your title?
Sexy motherfuckers in the car.
That
drinking
is,
coffee.
I think the comedians in cars things maybe has
True story. True story. They're going to think this is a joke. True story. Jerry Seinfeld, respect due, but he got that name from me, so I don't really feel bad about appropriating any way, shape, or form or fashion.
Did he just text you? He was like, "Hey, Kev."
We talk. We don't talk all that often, but it's generally not a text. It'll be a vocal conversation. So sadly,
What?
no written record
Wait,
of the fact that
what?
this happened. There's no record of it, but it
All
did
right,
happen.
You
We
can't.
had a
This
conversation.
is a podcast of truth, sir. Really?
Well, you know I'm about truth, justice.
Look at that.
and
Look at that.
The American way.
The most interesting DJ in the world, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed.
DJ Kevvy Kev. So you do the turntables,
I do, amongst other things.
right? Now is this straight up? You know, or you've talked to Jerry Seinfeld? Because now I'm all fucked up in the head.
I've talked to him through the television. I'm not sure he heard me, but I have talked to
See,
him.
this is what I'm saying.
I
So
have
you
talked to him.
started saying that this isn't a joke. God damn it. So, you grew up in New York, though.
Yes, and as a New Yorker, you're going to New York, so I got to tell you this,
Yes, sir.
just because I got love for you. One thing you have to be aware of, as soon as somebody says, I'm dead serious, this is not a joke, take my word for it, that's
Don't
when you
trust
check.
them.
That's when you check out. That's coming from a New Yorker, all right?
Yes, sir.
You go out there, do not get eaten up. We need you.
Well, see, I was told, I was warned. I mean, and I'm pretty. I think I have an okay head on my shoulders. Like, I'm not a bitch. I'm not. I know what's happening, but I was told first things first about New York. There's a lot of love there, but first you eat a shit sandwich.
Okay, first, if we're going to have a New York conversation, when most people think New York, they think Manhattan. New York is not Manhattan. New York is the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and Manhattan. So New York's a million different things. So when
Right.
people say things like that to you, just shake your head and walk briskly away. I mean, there's this in New York, there's that in New York, there's the other in New York. There's no, here's how it is in New York.
There's no one
there just
experience.
Isn't. No, there just
I see.
isn't. I grew up in Queens. I was born in Brooklyn, went to high school in the Bronx, worked in Manhattan for a minute. There's no New York experience, except for the fact that there's no New York experience.
Okay.
Everything is there. That's what's amazing to New York about me. Everything is there.
That's what I've talked about this, but like my read on New York, one of the many reads, is that in New York at least. Here, I'll get this out of the way for you. In New York, there's like a certain type of retaining of culture that doesn't really happen, I think, even in the Bay Area. So like in the Bay Area, we have diversity of race, diversity of this and that, but not necessarily a diversity of culture. Like when I went to New York, I was like, oh, like legit Jews, like legit, you know what I mean? Like there's like a retaining of like some sort of culture and then they mix together. Whereas in the Bay, it seems like even though there's a different versions of people, that everyone is kind of believing the same thing and watching the same Netflix shows and wearing the same earbuds. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like it gets a little homogenous.
So melting pot as opposed to salad bowl.
Melting pot as opposed to salad bowl. God, that's a great fucking way to put that. Yes, absolutely.
I never thought about that. That might be true. Huh.
Where like in New York, if Jew as an example, like when I went and I hung out in my Airbnb was in Brooklyn, I was like, oh, I've never actually seen Hasidic Jews, like in real life,
Right.
and they're all riding the train. You know what I mean? They're all doing the same stuff we're doing, but they're still.
They're
and I'm,
definitely them. I get it. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Where like over here, like everybody's kind of the same culture, the same ideas, the same. You know, it just feels. I don't know.
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
And I've never thought about it, so I can't speak intelligently on it. I will say I grew up with mostly Jewish kids. Went to everybody's bar mitzvah.
Right.
Have a bunch of yarmulkes, and
I really want to see
draw
you
it home.
really bad. In fact, these cornrows are not far from Payas. I got to.
But I said that to say this. I see what you're saying, because there was definitely an attempt to celebrate who you were and preserve who you were. Even as I was growing up, it wasn't an exclusive thing.
Right.
I very rarely felt excluded. Like I said, I went, over all my buddies' houses, and we did like all the normal, this is a real cool buddy kind of thing. But they definitely went to Hebrew school, and I went to church, and the differences were very stark sometimes. Huh.
Right. And there's obviously drawbacks to that, you know what I mean, where like sometimes you can be so rigid about hanging on to who you are at the base that you exclude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think that, well, maybe I was lucky. I don't know. Like I said, there's no New York experience. My experience, I didn't feel any of that. Now, I do have to say, I know a lot of black people, grew up around a lot of black people. Some of my best friends are black, and a lot of their experiences were what you're talking about. So
they don't want to hang out with white kids or with Jewish kids.
No. The feeling excluded thing did happen to them.
Okay.
So this is a kid sometimes who sat 3 desks away from me, and somehow he just had a different experience. So I don't have a great answer for why that happened, but I know you're right. It did happen to certain people.
Right. Yeah, I never really. I mean, I guess maybe this is because I look racially ambiguous. People don't know what the fuck I am. They're like, "Are you Asian? Are you Mexican?
Asian?
What are
you get
I
Asian?
have gotten Asian before. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think maybe it's partially that Puerto Ricans have kind of almond-shaped eyes sometimes. I have a brother who, when he came out of the womb, looked Chinese. It's just one of those things that Puerto Ricans have sometimes.
Most babies look Chinese when they come out, right? My son looked Chinese.
Yeah.
I looked at my lady like.
He's got a little dark skin, but.
So, a Chinese woman who's very young and very beautiful is having a baby. Her husband's much, much older, very traditional Chinese. Baby comes out and has red hair. The husband's furious, and he talks to the doctor. He goes, "What's going on? What's going on?" And the doctor goes, "Well, before she got pregnant, did you have an active sex life?" And he said, "Well, not as active as it could have been." And the doctor goes, "There you are. It's rust."
I like that one. That was good. That snuck up on me like that. I like jokes that sneak up on you.
I got one for any comment you make.
I'm ready, because someone needs to be fucking funny on the show. People are. Man, yeah, you were talking about starting a podcast. I think that would be really interesting to hear, even if it's just the old radio shows, archives that you have. You said you have 30 years worth of stuff, huh?
I did the drum for 27 years, and then I did the Wake Up Show, obviously. For about 5 years. I did a late night show on Wild 107, which then changed to Wild 94.9 for about 2 years, called The Danger Zone. And then most recently, I did Gold School,
right,
on Q102. So yeah, a lot of archives there with a lot of amazing stuff. I just would have to figure out how to package it, how to present it, what the idea would be.
So they let you have those. Like there wouldn't be necessarily any weirdness where they're like, "Oh, we own the rights to that broadcast or whatever the fuck."
That's pretty clear.
Okay, good.
It's all branded content.
Right. Do you feel like how much of that is nostalgia just for you, or do you feel like, because for me, I would feel like that would be valuable to a lot of other people.
You mean the content itself?
The content.
So I was incredibly fortunate to get started in this industry when I did, because when I got started, it was exploding. So I was there on the ground floor when people like the Fugees and Busta Rhymes and Nas and Jay-Z and Wu-Tang and Tribe, when they were all starting. And at that point in the industry, the way you started was at college radio. You went there first, then you went to commercial radio, and then you blew up, hopefully.
Right.
So all of those cats came through all of our college shows. I had a show, David D had a show, Benny had a show, KK and Garen had a show. There was a nice, strong collective of radio shows here, and they all came through the Bay. The Bay was a really important radio market, so the major labels made sure they brought all their up-and-comers through here, and we captured all of that.
This was mid-'90s?
When was this? I'm terrible with years, so I'm thinking, early mid-'90s.
Wow. Now, you had told me before that you did not start DJing until you got out here.
No, I was not a DJ in New York. If you ask around, if you went back and hired a private detective to find about Kevin's formative years, I was kid most likely to be smashing atoms as an adult.
So what happened?
I came out here to be a chemical engineer, and one of the first things they did when they sat you down at your orientation my freshman year was, don't be too locked into who you think you are. One of the beautiful things about this school is, hopefully, if you let it, it will teach you can do whatever you want. We're going to give you a broad base, and then you find your path. And most of us were like, I know exactly who I am. I know what I'm going to be doing.
Right.
And for a lot of us, that changed. For me, it changed radically.
What was the first? Was it like a turnoff to the subject itself?
No, I still love chemistry. Still
Okay.
to this day. The only difference on that side, I know I'm nerding out, whatever.
Now you just cook meth. Is that what it is?
The only difference is I'm more into P-Chem than organic chem. I thought I was going to be in like material science and designing high-impact plastics and space shuttle materials that could survive and nanotech-based applications, that sort of thing. But then I started learning about space-time curvature of the universe and how things get put together and how you describe. To me, physics is describing the universe in terms of math. And at its highest levels, what that becomes is very literally philosophy. The really, really high level physics and math stuff, to me, started to really, in a crazy way, mimic the philosophy classes I was taking.
Wow.
Because you'll have someone like Immanuel Kant or Rousseau or Newton, who was actually both. He was a little bit of both. He was a philosopher, people don't realize this, and he was a mathematician, just a brilliant guy. You have people talking about things in that abstract sense, and on the other side, you'll have someone like Einstein who will blow everyone's mind by saying, guess what? That sunlight coming down and this dashboard right here are both manifestations of the same thing. It's all the same thing. And try and wrap your head around this. It's all relative. There's no preferred reference frame. It just depends on how you look at it. And what that means in math is, there's that famous twin experiment. You have a pair of twins. One stays here. One flies off to another galaxy at sublight speeds or just greater than light speeds. Well, the amount of time that passes for him would be, there's something called time dilation or time contraction. Time would dilate for him. So I'm plugging in numbers. This isn't exact math,
Yes.
but say 100 years pass for him. Because of how fast he's traveling, the equivalent amount of time here would only be 1 year. And so if he went out on this sublight speed journey and came back in a year for us, he'd be 100 years older. The twin would be only a year older. Who's right? What amount of time really passed?
Okay.
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Right.
It depends on how you look at it. And there's no preferred reference frame. Now, if you talk to a philosopher, he'll tell you the same thing. You have your way of looking at things. I have my way of looking at things. What is absolute? What is the absolute truth? And that
Right.
becomes a really difficult conversation.
Right.
Anyway, I'm not explaining any of that really well,
my
but
brain hurts, but that's not new. But so you were a kid in New York.
uh-huh.
How soon did you know you were interested in that type of stuff?
Like I say, when I was in New York, I thought I was all about chemistry.
But were you like 8 or 9, like playing with
I
stuff, or
see.
were you like, or were you playing records at
high
first?
school. High school is when I got really, really interested in chemistry and figured, but not to the exclusion of other things. It's not like I was closed-minded at all, but even at that age, they wanted to push you towards, okay, what do you want to do with your life?
Right.
Especially the school I went to. I went to Bronx Science. And then you declare a major when you come out here. So that sort of thing. That I was like 80% sure, okay, yeah, I really like this. This is what I want to do. And that coalesced for me in high school. By my sophomore year, I was like, and then my junior year, I went over to France for a quarter. It's actually one of the reasons I came to Stanford is because they have an amazing overseas program. And I picked the campus in France. And I did that for one quarter. And
How was that?
oh, easily the best part of my undergrad.
Because of French
Easily.
girls?
Because even as a New Yorker, I hadn't had that broad dislocating experience. Okay. It was literally a different world. Right. And I did it when hip-hop was exploding globally, and I went out there as Joe New Yorker with the hat backwards with graffiti on it and the Adidas with the fat laces, and I've always been black. Since a very young age, I've been a black guy. And so I went over there, and people were literally following me down the street, and that had never happened to me before. Shy, bookish kid from very nerdy schools. And I had just started DJing at Stanford, yes, but not at that level. That had just never happened.
Did you feel like you had unearned like street cred?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That, like if you were in Queens, people would be like, "This motherfucker." But in France, you're like, "Oh my god."
I still do. I still do to this day. To this day, I'm like, there are times when I take a step back and I feel very acutely the fact that there is a character, a persona that I'm inhabiting sometimes, and it is what it is. It doesn't mean it's false.
No.
It absolutely doesn't.
No.
But it's definitely a persona.
Right.
And there's a lot of bleed, but it's not even close to who the core me is. Or the whole, I should say, it's not close to the total package. It really isn't.
Right.
And that's part of the earlier conversation we were having. People see me in a lot of different ways, depending on how they've met me and what interactions they have had with me and what business we do. Some people think I'm, the OG DJ. Some people think I'm the super nerd. Some people think I'm still the best lyricist ever in history. Some people think, why are you laughing? I'm going to fuck your head up later. You think I fucked your head up. I got lyrics for you. So the fact of the matter is they're all part of the whole, but
and none of them are more. See, I have that experience with this podcast and with my music. I have people who think I'm the half Puerto Rican Nate Dogg and I just write hooks, and then I have people who think I'm this political guy from the podcast. I have people who and none of them are one. None of them are exactly who I am. They're all pieces of who I am.
The whole, yeah.
And I really like that. Like, I never want to be put in a box. I don't want to be put in a box ever. You know what I mean? I think having a long-form conversation is a way for me to meld those pieces of my life where I can have somebody on hip-hop, I can have my brother on, I'm more authentically myself in all of these areas. But sometimes it is weird. I think it's a human thing where you automatically you start spending time around people, and all of a sudden you feel like you're wearing this certain hat.
Yeah.
And now you just kind of have these different traits, and you have it's hard to like step back from that and not believe your own hype in a way. Sometimes you create a character, and then that character kind of moves you, and you're a year or two down the line, you're like, I'm not actually this motherfucker. Like, why?
And how did I get here?
Yeah. I have to just detach completely from these people because it doesn't feel authentic. Isn't that it's a weird thing, man.
Yeah. I don't do much detaching. I roll with it.
You try to pull it into to who you are already.
there's not that much of a disconnect for me anymore when I go on stage and I have to be Kevvy Kev completely. It's because I've been doing it long enough that it's a fairly seamless transition.
Right.
And maybe I'm not that self-reflective.
No.
Maybe
I think I'm
the pool
just
doesn't go that deep.
Right.
Maybe I'm wading
you're
in
also
the shallow end of the
No,
gene
I
pool.
think part of it is probably that you're older. You know what I mean? And what happens as we get
19.
older? You're 19?
Well,
Black
in a
really
couple
don't
weeks.
crack. That's I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, man, I can't believe who the fuck I was 2 years ago. You know, and
Really?
I'm only fucking 32, so who the fuck am I? But like, you know, yeah, I don't know. I know. I'm just a fucking young whippersnapper.
I had someone call me a whippersnapper a couple of months ago. It cracked me up.
Right.
Oh my God. I was doing an event on Broadway, and he said, "Are you DJing?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What are you playing?" I said, "Hip hop." And I saw his face do that hip hop thing. So I said, "Listen, that word means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Here's some of the things I do play.
Right.
Here's some of the things I don't play."
Right.
And to me, my favorite definition of hip hop, everyone has their own, is taking a varied number of different elements, some of which you would not expect, and making it funky. That is hip hop. So if you can take Dripping Water and Muhfuggahs and a James Brown drum loop and put it together in a way nobody expected and then spit hot lyrics over it, that's hip hop. If you can take a polka song that nobody knows about and can't find and will be searching for ever because your song is that hot and make that something that radio wants to play and kids want to rap over on their mixtapes, that's hip hop.
Right.
If you can find a loop on an AC/DC song that happens to be bananas and put it back and forth and dance in the way nobody ever has to it, that's hip hop. To me, that's hip hop. How did I get on this?
Do you feel like lyrics are necessary in hip hop? Because sometimes, not anymore.
it's a
But
part
I
of
used
it.
to listen to like loops of like, you know, go online and just find, you know, Ninth Wonder beats and or you know, Mad Lib and just you know, just beats after beats after beats, and that. Do you feel like all, you know, the four elements or whatever the hell have to be all connected for it to be?
I think it is. I'm going to get in trouble here.
No, do it.
So-
Dude. This is the right podcast for it.
People are fond of that statement that hip hop is a culture, and it is a culture, but that's such a huge statement and not well understood. Who decides what the elements of that culture are? Who decides what should be included and shouldn't? Like, there's
Right.
debate about is beatboxing is a part of it, et cetera, et cetera.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, it is definitely a culture, but to me, the definition of how that culture works is, as I said, very, very broad. It's basically, can I take something you didn't expect and make it hip hop?
Right.
Make it dope. Make it the flyest shit ever, and you didn't see it coming.
Right.
And now everybody wants to do it. In terms of our lyrics, part of that, lyrics are the gateway drug for most people for hip hop.
Some people never get out of that fucking stage.
Yeah.
Some people like.
A lot of people.
That's where I mean, and I don't, you know, I don't begrudge anybody's like taste is not universal, you know, but at the same time, some people think they get so hung up on the community and they completely lose track of talent and creativity. You know what I mean? Like they're so, and no offense to any of the, I think there's a lot of very talented motherfuckers in the Bay Area and at ROTC or whatever, but sometimes people get so wrapped up in their definition of the culture that they every song and every lyric is about, you know, community, and I just at a certain point I'm just like fucking would you my favorite rapper of all time is MF Doom. He doesn't talk about there's not even like he doesn't even make any fucking sense. You know what I mean? Like
But he does.
he does make sense.
But he does.
But he's never like, oh, you know, big on the. Sometimes he'll dip into like the culture or the community or whatever. But it's much more about the lyricism and about his vibe and about his stilo. It's less about having to. Do you know what I mean? Like some people get so hooked up on their you know, it's all about activism shit, and I'm like, fuck it, okay, that's fine, but like, would you sing a song about a girl or fucking, talk
Yeah.
about sex or be flamboyant or be outrageous or, stretch artistically. And some people just don't fucking have it, in my personal opinion.
So who has one that doesn't have it? Who's like an icon in this business that perfectly describes what you're talking about?
Perfectly describes which side of it. That they're...
This is all they do, and will you please just do a different kind of song?
All right. It's not hip-hop necessarily, but although
hip-hop.
people can...
Let's keep it hip-hop.
Well,
who in
about
hip-hop?
Rage Against the Machine?
I don't know their music well enough to say that.
Oh.
I have someone in mind. That's why I asked you. And I would love to know what you think about them.
Is it someone we both know?
Personally? I mean, I know him personally. I'm Kevvy Kev.
Of course you are. Of course you are. God, you're on the right podcast. But no, let's see. Who is a good example of that at the grand scheme of shit?
Right. That's the question.
I tell you what. I haven't listened to a lot of his stuff, so I could be wrong. But I feel like Talib Kweli, like...
You're wrong.
Oh, okay. All right, so he does get into some shit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because sometimes the only shit I've heard is like, rah about justice or whatever, and I'm just like, okay, that's great and everything, but
make it a night to remember like Shalimar. That's his Reflection Eternal stuff. Oh, I can curse. That's his Reflection Eternal shit.
Okay, so he
then
does
escape
get
to a man
out
who
of
decided
that.
to do what I gotta. It's a clear case. I got MCs reading the aura. What did he say? Man, what you got for us as a black man says. I'm trying to get to some knucklehead
This is
shit he
entertaining.
says.
I'm just letting you know this is entertaining for me. Just watching you remember lyrics.
I'm sipping wishing well water imported from Pluto. That's why my eyes are glassy, so you ain't got to ask me. The interplanetary Illuminati move your body. I trip the stars first, so fuck Kirk and Scotty. I do basement parties on the mothership. Now I'm on planet Earth on some other shit. That's most. And then Talib comes back with some more knucklehead stuff. Yeah, he definitely gets into that.
Okay. What about Immortal Technique?
Again, I don't know enough of his stuff. He's the kind of guy who I respect. I've heard. Sure. I like it, but I can listen to but so much of it. I just tell you who I have in mind and see what your read is.
Please.
Chuck D.
Yeah. Same.
So does he annoy you though that he doesn't ever do that? Because
here's no. Okay, it's not necessarily annoying. So like as an example, Rage Against the Machine. I like Rage Against the Machine, but it's one song. It's one emotional note on the piano.
I get what you're saying. I'm asking, do you feel that way about Chuck D?
I haven't listened to enough stuff. The only times that I really know.
Okay, I know what you're getting for Christmas. Wow, you just said the statement, I don't know enough, Public Enemy. Wow. Your next when's your birthday?
June 10th.
Oh.
I'm
It's
sorry, Kev.
cracking.
I'm doing my best. I'm only half Puerto Rican. I
feel like I have not done my job when people say stuff like that.
But the stuff I have heard, I like. I'm not saying I don't have enough of an opinion about that guy, but Immortal Technique as an example is like, okay, I get it, everything's fucked, blah blah blah. But like sometimes, I feel like from an outsider's perspective, that Chuck D, that's why Flavor, even though Flavor would talk, political stuff, was also a goof ass. You know what I mean? Like he kind of needed that just a pinch of salt, just a pinch of humor.
Fair. That's
know
fair.
what I mean? And when, as an example with fucking Rage Against the Machine, Zach De La Rocha, and they are split up, and these guys all did shitty ass Audio Slave, and this guy has been working on Axl Rose's Chinese Democracy, or like he 15 years of like, oh, it's not ready yet. Like Zach De La Rocha hasn't come out with new shit forever because I feel like you just get so solidified and you take yourself so seriously sometimes, and I'm guilty of that, where like I can't see past my little blinders. I can't see the bigger picture or a different emotional fucking keyboard. You know what I mean?
What are the chances that they do see that and they just choose to do what they're doing?
The chances are high, but I don't respect it
I get it.
artistically, personally. Where like if you're only like even I've talked about this, but like Fiona Apple, I love her with all of my heart. She's probably up there in my top, like, female musicians, female art. Like, her songwriting is fucking delicious. I love her as a human being. And I was talking to fucking Unlearn. I don't know if you listened to that. I don't think you listened. But I had Unlearn on the show, and he was like, he gave me shit. He was like, name a fucking girl who's like, you know, fucking your top 5. And I didn't think, like, I wouldn't say she's physically top 5, but I blurted her name out, and he's like, motherfucking top 5, you know. So anyway, I'm sorry, Unlearn. but anyway, Fiona Apple doesn't write lyrics lyrically that are outside of the scope of a relationship or a breakup fucking ever. And it just, at a certain point, I don't, like, I want to be able to...
You're mad at Anita Baker, you're mad at Sade, you're mad at...
Not mad, but I feel like...
These people are just doing what they do, you know?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. All right, that's a valid point.
Wait, here's the other
sir.
side of it. Remember
Yes,
when Hammer came out and he was all about the party music and he was all about, I can put on a spectacle, and he was all about, you know, exactly the other type of stuff.
Right.
Different from what you're saying. And then all of that went away and it wasn't cool anymore. And he came back gangster, and people were like, that is not you. Why are you doing that?
Well, there's
So you're dunning these people for being them, as opposed to, okay, this ain't me, but I'm gonna do it anyway just because I need to stretch.
If it's you, if it's authentic. I don't feel like MC Hammer was being authentic when he did that stretch. I mean, from what I've heard in interviews, he's like, no, motherfucker, I'm from the streets. Like, I know, he's
gangster.
He's from fucking Oakland, man. He
More than that,
legit.
though. I mean, just his family and his circle.
Right.
That is definitely, I'll tell you a Redman story. Redman had a conversation with Hammer, and I'm not going to go through the whole story, but the upshot of it was Redman giving this guy, Hammer, ultimate props. Like, yeah, that is a real motherfucker.
Right.
Okay, so that is definitely who Hammer is. It's just, it was so different from what, you know what it was? It was the fact that that thing that he tried to change into was what was currently fashionable.
Right.
And that's what I think people had a problem with, at least as much as the fact that it was such a shift from what he was doing before. So it was a 1-2 punch.
That's a good point. Do you feel like maybe part of the reason why people were like, this isn't authentic, is because the other stuff wasn't authentic enough?
See, now you're getting into the Peter Feliciano, Kevvy Kev thing. They're all pieces of a whole. They're all valid. They really are. It's just people will see you in one way and they want to, okay, that's who you are then. You can't be this nerdy guy that knows about space-time and the curvature of the universe.
Right.
That's just not who the fuck you are.
Right.
You're,
no, that's a valid point. Okay, so when I first posited that idea, what I was thinking of are people at this local underground hip-hop scene. I won't necessarily mention names, but there are some people who I just feel like they're just not good, and they don't care about the music part, but they have found a home and they have found activism in the hip-hop community. And I feel like a piece of me just feels like, okay, I get that you feel this, like maybe it's an authentic piece of yourself, but let's give money and attention and applause to those who have worked their asses off to make good lyrics, to make good beats, to make good... Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there are people who are just kind of sneaking in under the community angle and calling themselves MCs.
I understand what you're saying. Without knowing who you're talking about, I can't at all speak on it. And
right.
I probably wouldn't, even if I did.
No, and I don't want to mention names because I think even the times where I've run across those people in real life, they're nice motherfuckers.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to hurt anybody's fucking feelings. And I know people are more than happy to put me in a box too. You know what I mean? And not, for not knowing who I am or just seeing what I post or seeing my music alone or whatever the fuck. So I don't want to put them in a box, but I'm just saying when I feel it, I feel what I feel.
I get it. I get
and
it.
Artistically, a piece of me feels like, can we just let's give a shit more than that. You know what I mean? When it comes to the artistic angle of it. I wrote a song. It's gonna be on my upcoming album called "That's Why You've Got Haters." You know what I mean? And it's talking about how the reason why you have haters is not because you're doing so well. It's because you're not a fucking good rapper. You know what I mean? Like and how.
Do you think that's true?
I think absolutely there are motherfuckers who hide behind, just like people sometimes hide behind the community angle. There's sometimes people who are like, oh, I got haters because, no, sometimes you've got haters because you're shit. I think some people lack introspection.
Are you saying they're shit and they've somehow still gained a certain notoriety, or they're just shit?
Lil Yachty.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Does that motherfucker care about music? I do not think so. I could be wrong. I'm sure he's a wonderful grandson and a wonderful person and blah, blah, blah. But should we label him a fucking artist?
So you're talking about on that level?
I'm talking about, yeah, on that level.
Okay.
Because the other side, at the local level, I don't see that many people still, I love to all my haters or whatever, because, it's, I don't know, it's not so much the vibe that the local artist community, I mean, maybe I'm just griping in general. Maybe this is just like 10 minutes of Pete complaining. But I just feel like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Chocolate motherfuckers in cars drinking coffee complaining.
Exactly.
Subscribe.
Right. Support this at patreon.com/conservative. But do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Now, you seem like more of a positive person. Maybe you don't. But you are from New York, too.
Yeah, well, New Yorkers to me, and I'll just say this, get a tremendously bad rap, and I've found them to be at least, if not more, friendly than people in the Bay. At least. But somehow that's been pivoted completely the other way,
right,
to this notion that New Yorkers are cold and standoffish and rude. It's like when I was in France, I was terrified of going to Paris because people were like, those people are so fucking rude. They're so rude. They're so hostile. No, motherfucker.
Really?
You try coming to San Francisco or New York, not speaking English and demanding people cater to you. You try doing that.
Right.
And arrogant Americans would do that shit all the time over there. I would, after a while, as a person that had been there for a while and had like kind of taken ownership of the experience, I would cringe. Right. At being associated with these knuckleheads who have this sense of entitlement. There's not a better way to put it. Right. Steve Martin has a hilarious routine about this. Are you a Steve Martin fan?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm about to get out of the car. Steve Martin has a hilarious fucking
arrow through your head right now.
He's the fucking dude. People don't even give him enough respect.
I can hear that.
He's the dude. He has a routine about you don't appreciate your country until you go to a place like France where they don't have the courtesy to speak English. I went to a restaurant and I said, like to have an omelet, please. And the waiter goes, omelette du fromage? And he just spools this whole thing out about how the waiter is the one that's in the wrong. He's Steve Martin, so it's much funnier. But
No.
That's the concept. It's so true. It's funny because it's true, like so much of comedy.
I guess the reason why I bring up the New York thing is that and I'll share a quick idea. Like, that's one of the things I thought about when I look at New York versus the Bay Area. The Bay Area is, on the surface, we believe ourselves to be more kind and more gentle and more, accepting and blah, blah, blah. But if you are broken down on the side of the road, Bay Area will not stop to see what's going on. Will not stop to help you.
Well, that's the same in both places.
Oh, in New York too. But I mean, like on a not literally, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we're like
on the neighborhood.
New Yorkers will be like, hey, yeah, can I get no, don't give me that slice. Give me the slice underneath it. Give me from the good pie. But at least there's some more love. And I think it's because it's a more social city. You don't live in your car so much, maybe, or like as in the Bay Area.
I don't have an answer for that, but I've definitely noticed it. I took a job when the internet exploded. I took a job with a website, surprise, a hip hop website, and it was nuts because I had to be in New York every week. So I would fly out from here Tuesday, stay there till Thursday, and fly back here that Thursday every week for like a year and a half. And aside from making me realize you can get used to anything, it gave me an amazing perspective on the two different cities, two different areas rather, and what's the same and what's different. An amazing perspective every week for a year, and you will see that very, very clearly. For one thing, breakfast is much better here.
Okay.
much
But
better
breakfast
here.
sandwiches, they don't have breakfast.
Period.
Okay.
Breakfast period. You can go here and get like an amazing breakfast / brunch.
But then you
with
have to eat
millionaires.
near Californians.
I love Californians. New York breakfast is like a greasy bagel and like
Right.
watery coffee from
Some shit.
yeah.
Right.
Oh man. But there's, to be completely serious for a brief moment.
Yes, sir.
There's some really, really, really stark differences and some really surprising similarities between the two.
Right. I think in general, what has made me, well, there's multiple reasons why I'm thinking of moving, but one of the reasons is because of the authenticity that I see lacking in I mean, on an individual basis, everyone's kind of fine. Which is part of one of the goals of having this podcast is that, like, oh, this person's a conservative, this person's a liberal, this person's like, no. When you sit down and you have a fucking conversation, everyone's kind of fine. Like, it's not that big a goddamn deal. Let's stop separating. Let's get together. But on a groupal level, I feel just like in New York, like there's more upfront. Like, you kind of know what you're getting. There's more socialness in a way. You know what I mean? Like, it's more authentic. It's more genuine.
There's probably a sociology paper in it because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I see that definitely. But it's also one of the trendiest places on the planet.
Okay.
It's endlessly fascinating to me how a place that trendy can simultaneously prize individuality so much. Like, if you're the new guy that's forging his own path, I just got it. So it's amazingly trendy because they are so ready to follow the next new tastemaker. Okay. So you can either be that next new tastemaker that's setting those trends, and that is prized. It really is. Or you can be the person that falls in lockstep. But you can't be anywhere outside of on the fringes of any of that. I mean, that's where you get lost in the sauce sometimes.
Okay, like the cronut. Like the cronut. When the cronut first came out and everybody was like, oh, you got to get a cronut, blah, 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 and they're waiting in line. That happens here too, though. I mean, maybe not so much like a tastemaker, but people are waiting out in line, for a brunch spot that doesn't even have a fucking name on the outside of the building.
There's one on Fillmore.
Yeah.
And the Kragel's. I'm going to put you up on Kragel's.
The hell is that?
It's a combination croissant and bagel. It's insane, and it hasn't taken off because only one place is making it. It's this spot on Presidio and Geary, right where Geary hits Presidio, 19th / Presidio. It's on the right-hand side right after that. I forget the name of the bakery. What's wrong with me? Unbelievable.
What a horrible person you are.
It'll change your life.
Kragel.
It's a Kragel. Yeah.
This sounds very exciting to me because as a fat kid, I'm interested in having all the food experiences. So I guess maybe the reason why I brought to put it back to that one point was just that the idea of why I was saying, like, you seem more positive, but you're also from New York, is that, in the Bay Area, I think sometimes we are a little too nice, but not nice. You know what I mean?
Lip service nice?
Yes, sir. When in reality, sometimes a fight is necessary, like on an individual basis. Not a fight, but like sometimes speaking up, like for what you fucking think, you know what I mean, without having, a sign, because the Bay Area loves our signs. Yeah. But like as far as like, no, I don't think this is right, or and you know what I mean. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to force this idea.
So I don't know.
Okay.
I'm in on a kick where I'm trying not to speak on things I don't know. Which it's a useful skill. Trust me, that is a useful skill. If you don't know, don't act like you do.
Man, that's so hard for me.
Well.
She was beautiful, by the way.
I didn't notice. I'm into this podcast.
Women are the best, dude. I love girls, dude. I fucking love girls.
Definitely, they run the world. Let's just not let them know that. You gonna edit this?
I think, yeah. I don't know.
You might want to edit that out. I don't know if we want that getting out there.
I think
they know they're the best. I just don't think they know they're running things. I honestly don't. Because if they did know they were running things, Trump would not be in office.
Maybe. There are a lot of girls who like that dude. There are a lot of girls that I know.
A lot? That's a big statement.
In the Bay Area, it's harder to find them, but there are some underground motherfuckers, or at least there are some underground motherfuckers who aren't 100% on the other side.
Can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
Can we not talk about Trump?
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely. No,
I'm having a beautiful day. Oh, man.
What did you want to be a DJ when you were in New York, but you just didn't feel
everybody
it,
wants
or
to be a DJ. Everybody does. True story. My sister was the cool kid in the in the family.
Mike, pull it up.
My sister was the cool kid in the family.
Did she DJ?
She had no, but she is super beautiful. Like, she got all the looks.
You're a pretty
so
girl,
she
too.
was. You gotta. Some people get like followed down the street, heads turned. She's that person.
All right.
I have no illusions about that kind of thing. I really don't. Because I have a son. It's the same way. I mean, I've been around beautiful people all my life. I know my level, and I'm fine with it. But anyway, so she was in the cool kids clique. All our adolescents and growing up.
Right.
And one of her buddies was a DJ. Greg was a DJ. So I go over Greg's house one day, and all the big kids are in the other room, and I wandered into his room where he had his little setup, and I had never done this before, and I had never had an opportunity or been that close to turntables before. How old was I? I don't know, 14, something like that. And he had, I'll never forget this, 2 copies of Super Sperm, which was like the breakbeat now, to make them go crazy at the parties, at the time, rather. So he had 2 copies on there. I guess he had been practicing, whatever. So I didn't know what I was doing. And I very quickly figured out, okay, crossfader this way means this turntable plays, this way means this turntable plays. And I put the 2 copies on, and I found the break. And the break that everyone was cutting, Flash, DSD, whoever, was Super Sperm. Sperm, soup, sperm, soup. So I got on and I went super sperm, super. And after I don't know, 5 minutes, I don't know how they didn't hear me doing this. They were busy doing whatever in the other room. There's 7 or 8 kids in the other room. It got good to me because I caught a couple of them on beat, and I went soup for sperm, soup for sperm, soup, and scratched his. This is way before Serato. This is real records.
Serato?
This is
Serato's
the digital thing that everyone uses now. So you can't scratch your record up and fuck.
Right. You're not even playing a record anymore.
You are playing a record, but it's
okay.
a digital record. It's got a time code on it, literally, and the record triggers the MP3 on your laptop.
Right, exactly.
These are real vinyl records, and the
You're
needle
14,
went
he's
right across this record and dug the deepest groove you've ever seen. This is Kev's first time ever DJing, and I hear the other room get quiet.
Oh no! Did you have to run?
There was nowhere to run. I'm back in his room. The front door's out that way. So he comes in the room and he sees me like this. And he sees one record's fine and the other one has this Grand Canyon in the middle of it from a knucklehead 14-year-old little brother of one of his friends. And he looks at me and he goes, "It's okay."
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Because he probably did the same thing when he started, right?
I don't know if he ever did. But that was definitely a watershed moment. That was the extent of me being a DJ at a young age. And like I say, I came out here. There's no shortage of DJs in New York, especially at that time. Right. No shortage of, let me backpedal, no shortage of amazingly talented DJs back then. And to me, growing up in New York, that was that guy. It was a DJ. It's not just a guy who plays records. It's a guy who puts on a show. He puts on a show.
Right.
He controls the crowd. He
Right.
knows what he's doing.
Right.
He watches. He knows this music really well. He finds stuff nobody else knows. He breaks it to the crowd first. It becomes cool because he's cool. That whole thing. So that's why it was such a shock to my system to come out here and go to the first few parties on campus that I went to, because this guy was the antithesis of all of that. And that's
Stanford?
what made, yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say that probably, from an outsider's perspective, Stanford would not be the place that there would be good DJs.
But it was after I started.
There you go. Fucking A.
Because I figured it out pretty quickly, and I became... Okay, one of my favorite quotes ever, and I invite you to steal this and disseminate it, is, "Don't be humble, you're not that great." So I'm not going to be I'm not going to be humble about this.
Yeah.
I very quickly became easily the best DJ on campus.
Okay.
And one of the better DJs in the area. So, yeah, I before that I had started writing rhymes, but as an MC, that didn't have nearly as big an impact as being a DJ on campus. Plus, I was doing the radio thing, so I was DJ Kevvy Kev.
Were you writing rhymes in New York?
No.
Or not until you got out here? So you didn't touch a turntable from that scratch until you got out here?
I saw that first party. I said, "What? Are you kidding? I could do that." Went home, bought 2 turntables, bought a mixer, came back out, started doing parties. Now I had a nice support system. Like 8 people came from my high school to Stanford. We brought 8 people out. Plus I had a couple of really good friends that we met very quickly there, and we formed a little crew. And that was the genesis of Members Only, which later on turned into the radio show.
Nice.
And that's how it started. With these parties we started doing. Scratching was very, very new to people. I mean, blending the way we were blending and beat juggling and all the rest of that was completely foreign. It was amazing and exotic. So when I say we were easily the best doing it, that's why.
Okay.
I mean, it was on a different level. And the concept of this is supposed to be a show, and this is supposed to be an education for you, and this is supposed to be, here's some new music, and here's some music you may know but you don't know about, putting it together this way.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing was what we brought to the game, and I'm still trying to this day. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. That hasn't changed at all. Obviously, in the time between then and now, the DJ culture here in the Bay, and I say this unreservedly, has by quantum levels surpassed just about everywhere else. The Bay is, and I don't say this lightly, probably the hottest spot for DJs on the planet.
Okay.
And I saw that as it started happening with Disc and Qbert, obviously, and Mike and Shortcut and Vin Rock, and I mean the names. It goes on and on and on. This was a place where a lot of things changed, and I was really fortunate. I was here to see it changing. The first time Qbert took a record with an unknown tone on it and put it on a turntable and picked the turntable up in his hand, and then used this other hand, and used the pitch and started playing a song. Do, 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 and like people lost their fucking minds. Nobody thought to do that.
Right.
He thought to do a lot of stuff nobody else thought to do.
Right.
So ultimate respect for the DJ culture out here, from those humble beginnings, just eclipsed so much. And really, it's not overstating it to say it changed the game. It did.
And it spread out to the other parts of the country as well.
Oh yeah, to the world.
Wow.
To the world, because Q, Apollo, and Mike started doing their 3-man routines, and everyone else had to catch up. I mean, they smashed globally every competition for like 3-4 years, to the point where they weren't allowed to compete anymore.
Nice.
That's what was happening, and they did. They changed the game.
Now you would run with these guys.
Respect.
Did they know about?
We
you
knew
at
about
the
each
time?
other, but I wasn't running with them. I wasn't a DJ on that level. So let me be really, really clear. I'm a DJ. I will call myself a really, really good party rocker. I know how to do a couple of things in terms of speaking with my hands, but I am not a turntablist.
Okay.
I am not
So there's levels
a
to
turn.
this shit.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Did
That's a completely different. These guys go home and they sit and they think and they find the right spots on the right records, and then they put together routines, and then they practice. They practice.
So it's a whole nother composition than it is party rocking would be. Like, okay, I'm gonna this song and I'm gonna mix this and that, blah blah, is different from I'm gonna literally produce a beat
and learn how to juggle this and
Okay.
the rest. Now there are some people who are good at, just about all of it. Shout out to Paz Red, shout out to Apollo, but someone like Hubert who has just changed things, that's a lot of work and a lot of thought that he put into it, and a lot of honing of his craft that he did. It's hand speed, it's dexterity, it's the idea, it's creativity, it's the whole nine. And that's a turntablist. That's a completely different animal. Okay. I don't even have turntables set up at home.
Okay.
I don't.
So
I don't
what
practice.
do you use when you come into ROTC?
I use the house turntables, and a lot of times that's where I'll try out stuff. Well, that worked. Okay, that didn't work. ROTC is especially the earlier part when I get to play whatever I want and I don't have to worry about party rocking. That's where I try different blends and see if they work, and different juggles and see if that happens, and practice my timing and stuff like that.
So for people who don't know, every Sunday night it's a free show over at the Boom Boom Room.
Boom Boom Room, Fillmore and Geary. The best time you can have with your clothes on. The best time.
You can take a shirt off or two. It's not that.
Yeah, but you don't have to. That's what I'm saying. To have a good time. This is where you can do it.
So not only does Kev, what in the hell was that? Not only does Kev DJ, but then there's a live band. There's MCs from all around the Bay Area who come and
Shout
line
out
up.
to Unlearn, who hosts way
sir.
too much.
Yeah, he does. Shout out to Ken Show. And it's the funnest fucking. It's such a good time, and not just because I walk in and people are like, oh, Pete. I'm like, fucking what up, everybody?
Strangely happy to see you every time. I think I told you that the last time you were there. I was like, why am I always so goddamn happy to see you when you walk in here? And I think I figured it out.
Yes, sir.
It's because you don't come enough. You don't
This
come
is true.
often enough.
If
you don't
I was,
come
if
nearly
I was a pain,
often enough.
if I was there every week, it'd be like this motherfucker.
Exactly.
Over there, right?
You're like, again, this motherfucker, really?
But yeah, Jenna Medina plays there and sings there.
Fun fact: this
sir.
is the man who introduced me to the lovely Jenna Medina. You don't remember that, do you?
I she always says that. I don't I don't remember. I
You're
guess
like,
I
this is
invited
Jenna.
her,
This
or-
is Kat. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
She's a vocalist I'm working with. She's really good. And
Really good.
to watch her progression from when she first got there to
Right.
now,
right.
shout out to Jenna Medina.
That fucking drummer who's been there for the last
Joey?
6-9 months. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
Joey's the real thing.
Motherfucker, dude. Every time
Shout
I
out
watch
to
him,
my man
I'm
Joey.
like, yeah, I know you're rapping. Get out of the way. I'm looking at the goddamn drummer.
Joey's the
Holy
truth.
Shit, dude. And that's what I'm saying. I really believe in my soul. Like, there are a lot of really good drummers of all races and shapes and sizes. But black drummers, like especially that come up in the gospel, like gospel church drummers, I don't know if that's his background, but like the fucking rhythm he's got is something that
You think
and
it's 'cause he's
having
black?
A fucking blast. Well, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a perfect segue into the next part of this podcast. And you said something else that referred to it earlier about race. You do realize there's no such thing as race.
Okay. Expand.
So the human race is what, 100,000 years old?
Yeah.
Something like that?
You would know a lot more than I would.
That's not nearly enough time for genetic drift for a species to differentiate genetically or otherwise to approximate anything like the concept of race. There's no genetic basis for race. There's no scientific basis for race. There's no.
Okay.
It's a social construct. It's a way for people to say, this is what you are. Here's the box for you. Here's the box for you. And that's all it means.
Okay.
That is all. It's a label that means as much as you want it to mean. So when you say Obama's black, is he?
He's half, isn't he?
But is he? Is he black? Is he half? He
Well-
walks down the street. What is he?
I think he would probably. I think he dances like a white guy. That's what-
When he walks down the street, what is he?
I don't know.
He's a black guy.
Okay.
When I walk down the street, I'm a black guy. I'm about the same skin color, roughly the same features. When my son walks down the street, what is he? You see my son?
Yes.
Kamal? What is he?
I don't know.
Obviously mixed.
Right.
Obviously mixed.
Right.
The thing is, Obama's mom is white and his dad is black.
Right.
Kamal's mom is white and his dad is black. So when you say one is black and one is mixed and one is half Puerto Rican and one is Asian and one is this and that and the other,
right,
it means exactly what you want it to mean. It's a social, you just have to trust me on this one. There's no science behind the concept of here's what your race is.
Right.
We all,
now there's
current thinking
culture,
is-
obviously.
Yeah, but current thinking is we all started in one supercontinent, and then it broke apart, and then we started migrating.
Right.
Given that, obviously there are going to be some physical differentials, and there's going to be some cultural, obviously, differentials, and even there will be some quirks that affect certain segments of the human population differently from others because of ingrained eating patterns and environmental impact, that sort of thing.
Sure.
That will happen.
Right.
So there's a higher incidence of sickle cell with this population. There's a higher incidence of Tay-Sachs with this population. But underneath all of that, we're all just a human race that cannot usefully be differentiated into anything that you could call a race. We just can't. So an interesting thing starts to happen. There are all kinds of reasons people want to apply those labels and people want to use those labels.
Some good, some not so
Yeah,
good.
and what happens is then those reasons take on their own life, and that's what gives additional legitimacy. It's a snake eating itself. It gives the whole notion. It gives the whole notion of race added validity. And there is no validity to it. So, to rewind to what started this whole thing off, a black man having a genetic advantage as a drummer doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, maybe not genetic.
I think more cultural, as you said. Culturally, definitely, it would. There'd be a few markers you could point to. I grew up in the church.
Okay.
I grew up in the choir. I played the organ, the whole nine.
Right.
And I know it's colored my perception of music and social interactions and even rhythm. It really has. Going to choir practice every Saturday definitely worked on my brain chemistry in a certain way. I shouldn't laugh. It did. Learning the piano and learning 4-part harmony and that sort of thing.
Right.
I would not have had that if I hadn't come up in the church. So I take your point. There's definitely a cultural impact to coming up in a black, for lack of a better word, church.
Right.
I hadn't noticed it.
I guess so. Like as an example, whether it's culture or not, I feel like I don't know any black dudes who would dance like the corny white guys that I sometimes see.
You don't?
I don't.
Wow.
Do you want to give us an example of your dancing? You've got rhythm, motherfucker.
You will never see me dance.
I see you bob a little bit. I see you.
You will never see me dance. Fun fact, you'll never see many DJs dance. Think about it. When's the last time you saw a DJ dance? Like out on a dance floor?
Did you get pressured to do that when you were growing up? I mean, because that's one of the four elements of the...
I wanted to be a b-boy. That umpteenth fun fact. What first got me into hip-hop was I walked into my sister's room one day and I said, Jackie, who are those guys down there on the corner wearing the green Pro-Cats with the no laces and the cut-off Lee jeans?
Yeah.
And we called them nylons, these BVD nylon shirts, and doing these amazing dances with the boom bap. And she said, those are b-boys. I said, what? And those to me were the superheroes of hip-hop. Before it was even a term, before it was, okay, here's the culture and here's this part of the culture. Those were the superheroes of this culture to me, the b-boys, because what they were doing had never been seen, and it took from a bunch of different music that, I wouldn't have known about otherwise, and It was so amazingly inventive and on every level. I mean, I'm gonna go get some linoleum because that's how I make this happen, and I'm
Right.
gonna put it out, and I'm gonna use this break beat because that's what works, and I'm gonna use capoeira and this, that, and the other, and I'm gonna add my own
Yoga.
twist to it. Yeah.
There's some fucking yoga like stances that I'm like, that's
Yeah.
people shit. Like that's.
So that's what got me into hip hop.
Okay.
That's what got me into hip hop.
Did you watch it? Was that around the time that
I tried. I
that
tried for like a week.
Aw. Did
I'm
you
not
go
a dancer.
straight up for like headstands first? Or
I tried.
How does one try?
Moonwalking, and then I tried up rocking, and then I tried. I didn't really try. I was impressed, but I had enough things pulling on my attention at the time that I didn't go full bore at it.
Right.
Or I'd have been passable at least, but it's not easy, and it would have taken a lot more than I put into it. And I quickly realized that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, shout out to the B-boys. Those are the hip-hop superheroes as far as I'm concerned, still to this day.
Now, people are doing it these days. Did you see it because when I go to ROTC, I see white cats doing it and Asian cats doing it and black cats doing it. Like it's all mixed. Was it mixed back then as well?
It was not as much as it is now. It was much more unusual to see white cats doing it. It was heavily Latin. It was also black cats, and that was 90% of it, easily. Now it's universal. I mean, hip hop's universal, so
Right.
the dance part is certainly universal, and it's bled into just about every other culture as well. I mean, you see elements of it in other kinds of dance and other kinds of music.
But there are even people like you were talking about what you define as hip hop and how you get weird looks sometimes. I was thinking to that weird song "Dynamite" by what is it, Teo or something. I throw my hands up in the air sometimes. There are some people who would call that hip hop.
I don't have a problem with anyone calling anything hip hop. I mean, that ship has sailed. I mean, if it's hip hop to you, then what that means, and this builds on what I was saying, if it's hip hop to you, then what that means is you see a bunch of different elements that were put together in a cool way that's unexpected.
So you're not protective.
I don't have to be. I mean, why do I care what someone else thinks is hip hop?
Okay. You don't feel like it, because there are some people who would say, oh, this is would go even further than my dumb little, being annoyed with, Teo Cruz or whatever the fuck, who would go so far as that it's going to ruin what has been, the culture that has been created. You're not afraid of that.
I'm a movie nerd. So I go on movie websites and argue with other movie nerds about things. And one of the things that gets repeated endlessly is, why are they remaking this movie? They're going to ruin the original. How can you ruin the original
It already
by doing
exists.
something else? It's still on the shelf.
Right.
It's still out there. Nothing about it has changed. No, your childhood hasn't been raped. This new Star Wars movie has nothing to do with the one that you loved. It really does. Would you please get over yourself?
Right.
There's no way to ruin hip-hop. It just literally cannot happen. Hip-hop is what it is. If it wasn't a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon,
Right.
even if it wasn't, there would still be a kid in Iowa in his basement practicing a crab scratch while his buddy is trying to spin on his head in a way that nobody else has done, and some other kid in New Mexico is writing lyrics that would blow your fucking mind if he ever got out of his basement. It's going to happen. It is. There's no way to ruin. I don't get the concept of ruining hip-hop. The most you could do is alter the way the masses think about what hip-hop is, and who cares? Honestly, how do you get to the point where you care what the masses think about something that's important to you?
Right.
How do you become that person? I don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something.
No. I mean,
Maybe
I
I'm
think that's a
missing
much more mature way to look at it. I think the other side is, and I know I'm guilty of this, when like sometimes I get more emotionally hooked up on the protection of whatever that is versus just enjoying it for what it is. You know what I mean? There are some times where I've been, can't think of a good example, but like where I've been like more so obsessed with how other people doing it wrong that I don't enjoy the craft itself. You know what I mean? And that's I think probably a product of my own immaturity or fear. Also fear of risking my own shit. You know what I mean? That whole critics are just people who didn't have the balls to make their own fucking movies. You know what I mean? Type of stuff. You know.
Sometimes. I don't think Roger Ebert was that.
Yeah.
No, I think it was just a guy that loved movies.
Yeah, he seemed legit. He's still alive, isn't he?
Is he?
Siskel died like 15.
Yeah, no. I heard murmurings about Ebert. I don't know. I don't watch. I don't keep track of stuff like that. But I'm heavily into movies. Heavily.
I know. I saw your collection. I was like, The Shield. This motherfucker watches The Shield, dude. I don't meet a lot of people. I don't get to. I was looking for it the other day. That's one of those shows that, like, even though I know, like, every episode, oh, they're about to get caught. Oh, this is about to, it's always a drama thing. I still love that fucking show, man.
It's a great show.
It's a great fucking show. Walton Goggins is fucking killing it, dude. He's everywhere these days. He's on every Quentin Tarantino movie. He's all that stuff.
He did Justified.
Yeah. What's your favorite movies? Like what?
I love the fact you said movies instead of movie. I watch a lot of car chase, suspense, drama stuff, but in terms of grown-up movies, I'm trying to think of one.
Well, they're both valid artistic.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I watch all the Marvel movies because I'm also a huge comic book nut.
Okay.
I had to circle back to the arguing with nerds on movie sites when IMDB was still up. One of the biggest arguments was, Idris Elba.
Yeah.
So he got cast as Heimdall for Thor.
Okay.
And I'm a comic nut. The only thing I have more of than records is comic books.
Okay.
I probably have like 30,000 comic books.
Those cultures mesh together well. MF Doom is a great fucking example of that.
They do. And I'm right there. So I'm a super purist. For a long time, I just was like, why don't you just stop fucking with the comic and just put that up on the screen? Why are you making all these ridiculous random changes?
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem?
Sure.
Why do you have to change things? You're not going to make the story better. You have something that people love. So the idea is, let's make a movie about it. Okay, if people love it, and you want to make a movie about it, why change it? I don't get the...
But do you feel like it ruins it? Like you were saying the other...
So here we go. So someone like Idris Elba will be cast as Heimdall, who is a Norse god. It doesn't get more white than that.
Or when they cast a black guy, I can't remember his name, as Kingpin. And Kingpin was
That
white
was the first movie, yeah. That was Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah, there we go.
It got cast as Kingpin. That was a horrific movie, but not because of him.
Okay.
Anyway, Heimdall gets cast, and I'm a huge Idris Elba fan, but I'm like, on these message boards, I'm like, once again, why are you fucking with the book, the books?
Right.
Why not just put the book on? And there's a very definite split with things like that when you argue on these lines. There's the people in the camp of just tell the best story with the best actor possible for the role, and then there's on my side, why not stay true to the story? And we're going back and forth. And when something like this happens, inevitably, as they shout across the aisles, the people on the just get the best actor will say something like, you don't want Idris Elba because you're racist. And I love it when they say that because I always reply, you got to trust me, I'm not racist. I know a lot of black people.
Right.
I grew up with black people.
Right.
My sister married a black guy.
Right.
I play sports with this is a great one. I play sports with black people all the time, so I get how they think. And they come back, I can't believe do you know how you sound? You play sports with black, your best friends are, yeah. I don't know what to tell you. I grew up with a lot of black people, and we're still friends to this day. So that's not what it is. I just don't like him for this role.
Right.
You clearly have a problem with the fact that he's black. You need to take a better look at yourself.
Right.
And at its best, I can spool that out for like, I don't know, like pages and pages on people. It's so fucking petty. It is so petty, but it brings me such joy. I know I am exposing myself to anyone who might have been on any of those threads, but I don't care. It's been fun doing that. and I love black people. I do.
Right.
I do. But Idris Elba, for Heimdall, he's a white Norse god. I'm sure there's an actor they could have found that was image appropriate and could also act. I'm sure they could have. Get Idris to play somebody else in the movie.
Right.
Give him another role.
Right.
It's like they want him to be the next James Bond. Are you kidding me? Give him his own franchise.
Right.
He can carry his own. He doesn't have to be James Bond.
Right. Or
He's
Black
Idris
Annie. Remember when they did that too? Here's why it bothers me.
Oh.
It bothers me not because, let's be real to the role, because I don't have as much comic, I didn't grow up that way. But what bothers me is the intention behind it. That these studios are wanting to like show how woke they are by just fucking with the story altogether. I'm like, you're just being dishonest. You're a company. Stop it. You know what I mean? Like, just
you're trying to
cast it
maximize
as
profits.
it is.
You're trying to make a Benetton ad. And
Exactly.
This
let's
is a comic
capture
with a
the woke audience. Fuck you, dude. I don't want the, as Patrice O'Neal used to say, I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. You know what I mean?
You know where that's from?
Yeah, from Beverly Hills Cop, right? Yeah. I love Patrice. Did you ever listen to Patrice?
He's the dude.
He's my favorite comedian of all fucking time. Absolutely.
Really?
Him and Colin Quinn.
Colin Quinn? Wow.
Go ahead. What? New York boys #1.
I have tremendous respect for Colin Quinn, but not so much as a comedian, just as a funny guy and a severely underrated host. I don't know why.
Tough Crowd?
Yeah, I know why that show didn't work, but he was severely underrated.
Absolutely.
But in terms of best comedian of all time, he's not
Patrice,
in the conversation.
Are you fucking...
No,
all right,
no,
listen.
I'm not saying Patrice. You say Colin.
I said Patrice O'Neal, Colin Quinn. Now, I can understand. I mean, George Carlin, Pryor, all those guys.
Richard Pryor.
Bill Hicks.
Richard Pryor by a country mile over Patrice. And if you asked him, he would say the same thing.
I know he would. Of course, he would say that. But I just, it doesn't speak to me as much. And I respect it. That's like Lenny. I wouldn't say he's like Lenny Bruce in that category. But like, I respect it, but it doesn't speak to my fucking soul like Patrice did.
Lenny Bruce was important, but he wasn't as good, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Same thing with Carlin. Important, but not as good.
Okay.
I think even as Patrice, certainly as Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor, to me, is the guy who put all of that together. He was important. He was ridiculously funny. He was talented. And he was fearless.
Yeah.
And that's why, to me, he's just that dude. Now, in terms of Patrice and his contemporaries, it's just too. I like Bill Burr as much as Patrice. I do.
Bill Burr, yes, as a social commentator, yeah.
I mean, as
absolutely.
a comedian.
But I mean, as far as the juice that hits you in the gut, as far as that, like, what speaks to you?
I need to stop saying this because Patrice is way up there for me, and it's
Fuck
starting
yeah.
to sound like he's not. Patrice is way up there.
Yes.
He's like one of the ecclesiastical hovercrafts of comedy.
Absolutely.
He is.
And not just that.
So I'm going to just leave it at that.
And not just that, but not even stand-up. Even Colin, like, for me, I've listened to days and years of old Opie and Anthony shows, and Patrice's Black Phillip show and all those. It's not even like who they are on stage, because who Patrice was on stage is a fucking beast. But like who they are just sitting and having a conversation, being fucking hilarious.
Tough crowd, yeah.
Tough crowd, exactly. Yeah. When you take them out of that and you put them in like with Patrice O'Neal and Pat Cooper when they would go back and forth, motherfucker, dude, that's the funniest shit of all time, You know,
when I became, like a lot of people, I was already a real fan, but when he went over the top for me, I'm talking about Bill Burr, was that Philly rant. Mm-hmm. It was a rap. After that. I've never seen that before or since.
Yes.
They started out booing him and throwing shit and gave him a standing O by the time he was done shitting on them.
Right. because he was like, you know what, fuck this.
He
I'm
said,
just
fuck
digging my
all
heels
of
in.
you. I hope you die of cancer. I hope your moms die. I
Your,
hope she goes
your
home.
city sucks ass. You know?
Yeah. You piece of shit one bridge have in town. You shitty cheesesteak eating motherfuckers. He shit on them for like, and he did the whole 15. He said, I'm doing the whole 15. And
10 more minutes
to do
left.
it.
9 more minutes
That
left.
put him over the fucking top for me.
Right.
He's that dude. Fun story. True story. I went to, you know about Comedy Clusterfest?
Yes, sir.
So he did it 2 years ago, and I'm there, and I'm watching him. I was fortunate to be backstage and didn't have the balls to go up and say anything to him because he's Bill fucking Burr. And then I went.
Kevvy Kev, goddammit.
It was a Sunday, so that night it was a Saturday. It was a Saturday. That night I was at the Boom Boom Room doing set breaks, and I was thinking I should have just fucking said something to him because
He would
it's
have had a
after the
blast.
show. He could have come out.
Yeah.
He'd have had a good time. I swear to God, that's 2 years ago. I swear to God, a buddy of mine who used to work the door came and visited 2 months ago, and he said, hey, how you doing? And I said, yeah, how's Chicago treating you? Oh, it's okay. And I said, somehow Clusterfest came up, and he said, yeah, you know, a couple years ago, Bill Burr walked in here on a Saturday. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, he came in. I calmed him in, whatever. I said, you didn't tell me he was here.
While you're on stage.
He didn't tell me. He's like, I didn't know. How could I know to tell you? I didn't know you would care. I was gutted. I was fucking gutted. The motherfucker was in the club.
At
Happened
least
to be.
he got to enjoy
But that's
your
the
DJ.
universe putting us together, and it didn't happen. Can you imagine?
Dude, there is a lot to be said for a closed
Oh.
mouth does not get fucking fed. That's one of those things.
Yes.
Like even I was thinking about that example. I always think about
Yes.
this example when Patrice would talk about, and he was legendary for walking crowds. When a crowd would start to be assholes, he wouldn't go like, "Oh, pretty please, like me." He would be like, all right, then watch this. I'm going to make every motherfucker in here walk out. You know what I mean? Like it just, he didn't beg for it, just like
didn't give a
Bill
fuck.
Burr. You know what I mean? And as far as the closed mouth don't get fed, it's such a hard it's such a hard muscle to practice because as a guy who has insecurities, like we all do, it's been hard for me to go like, okay, let me just send this email to see if I could do a show. Or like I was just talking about this with a friend. My price has risen, like for being a performer, and sometimes I'll raise my price and I'm like, okay, this is what my price is going to be, and I've had times where I'm like, they're not going to fucking say yes to this, and I send the email and then immediately they come back, okay. I'm like, oh, that was fucking easy. I should have asked for more. You know what I mean? I should have get a little. You know what I mean?
It's hard to know your value though. It
Right.
really is. So you have to do that from time to time. You have to poke the bear.
Right.
To mix metaphors or fuck up metaphors rather. Yeah, I was highly, highly, highly pissed off when he told me that.
Yeah.
So, Bill, if you're watching this, next time you're in San Francisco, come see your boy,
The Boom Boom
your
Room.
favorite DJ.
Every Sunday night. Man. This has been a
ready
good
to-
conversation. Yeah, let's fucking. Thank you very much for coming on the show, dude. I really appreciate it. The legendary Kevvy Kev. What else do you want to promote besides ROTC?
What do I want to promote?
Teo Cruz.
Okay.
So you're not Gold School anymore.
No, it might come back as a podcast, or I might take it to a different radio station. But right now, it's in the ether, so to speak. Have a series of monthlies that I'm working on between Great Northern and Monarch and Elbow Room, which is about to reopen. I have a record that I'm producing, also tied to freestyles, artists that have been at the radio show. So about 8 artists will take whatever freestyle they did on the show and then pair it with an original track, 16 tracks total. Trying to spread the joy in as many markets as possible, travel as much as possible, get out there. We're also trying to franchise ROTC, so ROTC Oakland, ROTC LA, Miami, New York. That's a lot of work though. So
Yeah. Yeah, I saw you guys did it. was it the Legionnaire?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Legionnaire. Is that monthly yet?
It's a Wednesday, catch as catch can, because Wednesday's a really, really tough night. So whenever it makes sense kind of thing.
Right.
I don't know when the next one is, or if there even is one scheduled for the next few. So just stay tuned, I suppose.
And when you do, because I really think it would be a great listen to the old archives and stuff, let me know and I'll share it. I'll share it with the people.
Definitely shall.
And you can support this podcast and all my musical stuff at patreon.com/Conservatish. You can find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. It's FELICIANO. And maybe I'll come by ROTC this Sunday after I get done at Amelie Wine Bar. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Kev, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.